Welcome to the Dom Sub Devotion podcast. Every episode of Dom Sub Devotion is an authentic reflection of our real life in a loving 24/7 DS marriage. If you crave the passion and intensity of a power exchange dynamic inside of a deeply loving and intimate relationship, you've found the right place. You can always find more from us in the show notes and at infinitedevotion.com. Thank you for listening.
Ginger, I am really glad to have you here with me today. The fun thing about you and Dawn and I and your partner Shane is that you're one of the internet friends we've actually met in person. A few years ago you were in Minnesota for something when we still lived there, and the two of you came out on our boat, and it's always fun to meet internet friends in real life and to actually have met the person in the human form and not just the screen form. So
yeah, that was a great day. I have to say, it was so beautiful.
Yeah, the two of you zooking on the back of our boat was a memory for sure.
You're welcome. Happy to come back anytime.
We don't have the boat anymore.
Tragic.
We're full-time living in this RV and traveling around the country. Yeah. We had to sell basically everything we own. So, we have no boat, no Jeep, all the toys went away so we can live on the road.
Traveling light. I get it. I love it. But yeah, it was a pleasure to meet the both of you. And of course you knew this, but Dawn and I got to journey together in a deeper women's container run by a friend of ours. It was just such a pleasure to meet Dawn, through that deeper context, and then be able to actually also meet the both of you in person and see your union and feel your energy in the flesh, to your point. So yeah, such a pleasure. I think that was almost 3 years ago now. It's wild.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
So we kind of hatched the idea of having you here. I invited you here because we were going back and forth in some direct messages about a variety of things, talking kind of like you and I tend to do when we get going on these things, going all the way to the core, to the bottom of things. And before we get really too far into that, I would love just for the people who are listening here in our audience who maybe doesn't know you, those of them who don't, can you just tell us about Ginger and kind of who you are and what you're about? And
I can try. About Ginger. Well, let's see. Which direction do I want to take it today, Well, first of all, I'm deeply, deeply grateful to be here. Thank you. And also to those of you who are listening, if I haven't met you before, it's lovely to be, having this opportunity to kind of give something to you today. And I'll speak about myself from a place of what do I tend to and what do I desire in the world. So those tend to be really good places to start. I tend to a lot of women. First of all, I tend to, in this world that you and I both inhabit, I really try my darndest, personality level aside, to serve the desire that animates in a woman. And specifically where I tend to come in as very helpful is serving her voice. The bridge point of that inward felt sense of the desire or the yearning or the depth of knowing that she has, and somehow being able to externalize that desire and give it over unto a person in her life, whether that be her husband or a man or a colleague or a child, her child, for example. Just having that bridge point of the voice is extremely important to me. It's something that's always been very alive for me. I'm a very outspoken woman, as you know, Andrew, and I'm not shy about using my voice. But I know that is a really big challenge for a lot of women, and particularly in the realms of devotion and the subtleties and the nuance of bringing our depth of desire to the man that we love. It's a stopping point for a lot of women. So that is something that I tend to quite rigorously. And then, generally speaking, I'm in support of union on all levels. The most etheric, the most vast, the most boundless, version of that word, and then also very, very concrete brass tacks, like let's make this real, let's make it work. And how do we make it work? By serving truth. So I'm very, very devoted to serving the pulse of truth as it reveals itself to us moment by moment by moment. And that goes for men and women alike, but that's really what I try to tend to as best as I can. And of course, there are many other layers that I serve and tend to as well. But that's at least a starting point for our conversation.
I love that you brought the word truth there. I'm going to key on two words you said, truth and desire.
Perfect.
I've used the word truth. Well, that is the number one thing. I encourage people in their own individual lives, but also in the context of their relationships, to know what your values are from a concrete perspective. Like, you need to have something to which you're aligning your actions. And in our life, in my life and in our relationship, the truth is what we list as the highest value.
Yeah, exactly.
And people have challenged me on this before because I value truth over integrity.
Can you define integrity so that we're using the same definition?
Well, here we go into the depth already, because integrity for the masculine, integrity for the feminine are two very different things.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And, first of all, truth over integrity to me means I'm not going to think that I know that I'm in integrity.
Mm.
Because if I'm not submitted to the truth, and this is where even dominant masculine men need to be in submission to and surrender to something beyond themselves. If I can't admit and accept the truth, even if it feels uncomfortable or challenging to me, then I'm only in integrity to my ego. So, I would love to hear your take on the difference in integrity between what you maybe are invited to as a woman who's trying to live in a feminine expression versus what that might be for a man.
Yeah, honesty comes to mind. Honesty meaning honesty about my own experience and allowing the calibration to come through. And again, using my voice to, rather than assume that you can read my mind about things that are changing and shifting underneath the surface or inwardly for me, bring to the external that which is arising in an honest moment-to-moment experience of, to your point, truth. So this is different from just whims or cravings or passing fancies or emotional volatility in a sense where I have no witness consciousness about myself. Right, so I think we can distinguish that and set that whole bundle aside for the moment, and then just say, like, I actually resonate so deeply with what you said about truth as highest value, and also the requirement. It really is a requirement, like at a soul level, for a man who, well, truly both parties, a man who's devoted to his union, to be first and foremost devoted to truth. So in surrender, in submission to something higher, exactly as you said. And likewise for us as women, we too have to be submitted to, first and foremost, truth, which will probably sort of like rub certain men's ears the wrong way, because they might still be hanging on to egoic constructs of like, no, my woman, is in submission to me. It's like, well, yes, and like truly there is something that is higher, right? It's that the deeper knowing, or the soul pulse, or the thing that is trying to animate itself through you, through her, through me, through Shane, for example. Like, that's actually what we're in submission to. And we're both in submission to that at the same time. And then how it expresses, well, then we have the buffet of life, and then it gets really fun, and we can taste all the flavors and try all of the experiences, and, have all of the sensations that can come through from the buffet. But then, like, the altar underneath that is truth, ultimately.
And what I tell men all the time is, if you want your woman to be in complete and total submission to you, which people who tend to find me tend to think that that sounds pretty fucking awesome.
Indeed.
Well, she can do that to the extent that you are the expression of the truth. If you are in alignment with the truth, then there is no reason why she would ever need to have walls up, to have to have fear coming between the two of you, because there's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah.
If you are in the truth.
Yeah.
But you know as well as I do that a woman who's in her body and who's attuned to the life around her knows, even when she doesn't know it, if that man is actually living in the truth or if he's living in some kind of control. So what's the difference feel like to you? I know what it feels like to Dawn, but what does it feel like to you to know that and feel that difference?
I'm just going to feel it for a moment. Yeah, it has something to do with, and pardon me while I try to find words to describe energy. It's always a tricky thing, isn't it? It has something to do with the backbone, that sense of solidity that comes very naturally when a man is in accordance with his own highest values, when he's not wobbling in that, whatever those may be to him. So I want to be clear, I can feel a sense of quote unquote safety or even truly respect for really the fact that any man would be in accordance with his own values, even if I happen to disagree with what his values are. I will still have a felt sense experience of truth, right? Because there's alignment for him within himself, all the way up, all the way down. And whether you want to use, sort of like woo-woo energetic terms, like, oh, there's this resonance, it creates like a harmonic field, for example, or like his morphic field is in alignment. Whatever the words we want to use, it is a felt sense experience for me as a woman to be face to face with any man who is living in accordance with the deepest thing in him. It's just different. There's a solidity, or a condensation is another word that kind of comes to mind. It's like there's just a firmness there. And again, it might not be a pleasant experience if I disagree with those values, right? But I can, at the meta level, I still respect that he is holding his own spine. My God, like what a beautiful thing, That's the best I can do as a starting point for now.
Well, and I think coming back to the woman's side of this a little bit more too, that is kind of a prerequisite to that desire. Like, to be able, for a woman to feel desire, it has to come from a receptive place, right? It's not a performative game that she's playing. And I think this is where so many people get mixed up, and women especially, they're trying to perform desire, and they're so disconnected from feeling what that is. And that's the integrity, to me, for a woman, is being in accordance or in an internal alignment with what she actually feels, and trusting that and moving from that place.
Yes. And allow me to just jump in here.
Please.
And I'm going to broaden the scope on the word desire too, because a woman, I can look at myself of the past. I would have heard that word desire and felt immediately like that tendency towards performance. Whereas what I experience nowadays is so much more akin to just living in tandem with that pulse of life, which can look so radically different from what the topside world would have us think of when we hear the word, oh, like she's in her desire, right? It conjures a certain image. There are textures, maybe colors, tones, maybe the way her face is, or what she's wearing, right? There's something there that's like a picture already in our minds. But in reality, like the broadest term of desire is in some way, shape, or form married to the pulse of Eros itself. And Eros meaning aliveness. Aliveness, aliveness, aliveness. So like, what is alive? Where is the pulse of life in her? what is wanting to animate through her body. That to me is like the devotion to desire. So that could be tears, that could be rage, that could be a vast array of textual experiences and emotional experiences, or words, or whatever types of, sounds, moans, whatever. It doesn't have to look a certain way. And so I feel to unhook, like as a woman, to unhook myself from an overlay, a mental overlay of like what desire even looks like or means or whatever, is to drop below that and just be really intimate with life force as it's attempting to flow through my body. And actually being in acceptance of however it is. And I'm not saying that there's perfection there either, because this is not a game of like being perfect. It's another unhooking moment for all of us as women, over and over, unhooking from that mental overlay. And just becoming, again, reacquainted over and over again with what is that pulse, and being in devotion to that. So I can always go off more on that because I feel really passionate about it, obviously. But I hope that serves, just to massage that word open a little bit more and give it some breathing room, so it doesn't have to look a certain way. Yeah.
And I hear this from women all the time, is they'll hear a statement like what you just made, and then they go to, okay, how do I do that?
For sure. Yeah. Well, let's talk about it.
Which they don't realize is the performance.
Totally.
The desire to figure out how to do it is the exact opposite of what you're calling them into.
Yeah.
Or what you are trying to display to them as available. So how do you help that woman who's asking like, okay, sounds great, eros, aliveness,
for
forth. Sure. Like, okay, how do I do it?
Mm-hmm. So there's a woman listening to this recording right now, and she is in a body. She is.
They probably all are.
I would hope they all are. Good Lord. I mean, otherwise we have bigger problems on our hands.
If we've reached the world beyond human here, this podcast is doing real well.
It's doing great, right? Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's like, maybe that's a good thing. No, I mean, listen, if you're listening to this, you're listening with ears that can hear, and you have a body that can feel, and you have physical sensations that arise in that body as you hear my voice or as you hear Andrew say something. And whatever those sensations are, whatever is deeper than those sensations, I want to go a notch deeper into knowing. Right? Because sensations are information, they're informative, they're guides, they're guideposts. And then there is, for women especially those listening, probably some of you, there is a deeper voice than even that, right? So there's like, you go down and you clunk a little bit lower, you clunk a little bit lower in your body, and drop out of the mind for just a moment, follow my voice, and just go right down to the center of your being, right? For the women who are listening. Men can do this too, it'll just feel a little bit different for them. And you just clunk down your spine, lower and lower and lower and lower, inwardly. This is not something you have to try to do, you can just follow my voice. And eventually you land somewhere, especially if you breathe, because we are mammals and we do need oxygen, so please breathe. And you let go of your belly. As a woman, you let go of your belly. You let go of what you're carrying, what you're holding in. And you probably drop your shoulders as well, because you don't need to carry that either. You might even let go of your jaw. My goodness, there's so many words that you're holding there. Just let go of all of that. Right? And then you feel what is there to feel down in your own depths. And this is not a heady process. It's just being with what is. And every time you do this, quote unquote, do this, allow the dissension, you'll probably discover something different. So that is like a mini version of how we might come into contact with that deeper pulse underneath. And yeah, thank you for going on that little journey with me. I appreciate it.
Being able to live from that place on a moment-to-moment basis. You know, the first time that a woman goes there, that she relaxes her jaw, her face, her lips, her shoulders, and really just comes back in and starts feeling her feelings, she's probably going to notice that it's pretty damn uncomfortable in there.
Can be, totally. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. Well, and that lot going on in a lot of cases is all of the things that she hasn't let herself feel for her whole damn life. So that's when women ask me, like, okay, how do I do this? It's like, okay, well, the first step is what Ginger just said here. You've got to get back into your body, but then you need to let yourself feel the things that come up. You have to let that stuff move out of there, because it's not going to be very comfortable to be in your body if your body is just jam-packed with all of the things that you have not let yourself, back to the voice that you spoke to, if you haven't let yourself use your voice and speak up for parts or things or experiences, that's what you're going to run into, because the stuff that hasn't been felt is being carried, and that's what needs to move. And I think people get scared, like women get scared of what they find in there.
Yeah, there's a whole world down there, the underworld. It's beautiful. Yeah, and also I feel sometimes it can be a quick process to pop back out, and then all of a sudden the mind will say, oh, well, you need to deal with all of it right now. It's like, oh, there's so much. It's overwhelming. It's like, okay, great. Well, it just is what it is. It doesn't mean anything that there's so much there, other than it is what it is. There's just so much there. You don't have to do anything about it immediately. There's no right order to things. You don't have to anything. There's no have to. It doesn't exist. It's just an invitation, to become more intimate with yourself, Yeah, and I totally understand the fear. That was very real for me. Very, very real.
Yeah, there can be this rush to, okay, I need to feel all this stuff and let go of it because I want to be rid of it because I want. And that, like, that's just this pattern that, like, this isn't just for women. Everybody has this, like, this sense that I don't know what the life that I'm looking for is, but I definitely feel like this one isn't it. Like, it's somewhere over there. Like, something else, something different is the life that I need to be living, not the one that I'm actually in. And like, I think for a woman, this is the deepest submission. It's really not just the ability to tune into this inner world like this, but also then the trust in herself and in her voice to let herself feel all of that thing, because there to me is the integrity to what you are experiencing internally.
So huge. Yeah. And it can feel like scary to have so much space also, if we're used to being so full and so tangled and so compressed. It actually can feel, and when I say feel, I want to be really specific. The mind will say that it feels scary or strange or confusing. It's like, to be very clear, confusion is not a feeling. Confusion is a thing that the mind tells us that exists. A feeling is something much deeper and more sensational than that. So, and you know this obviously because you've lived in large cities, you've also lived kind of on the land or as a nomad, right? Like you've lived untethered and you've lived like hooked in, depending on the phase of life, as have I, right? And I often find that my work feels alluring or magnetic to, particularly to women who are in larger cities. And then they also experience this quote unquote feeling, which is not a feeling at all, but a mental overlay of confusion, right? of how, like, what are we doing here? The mind wants to feed. So what I encounter often is women with very, very hungry minds. And believe me, I was one of them for most of my life. I still have a hungry mind, let's be real. I love to study, I love learning new things, and so on and so forth. And I encounter women with very hungry minds. They want to know and know and know more and understand and figure it out and get to the result and get to the other side. And like there's this almost like a hungry ghost energy to that, where it's never enough and it's all consumptive, which is fine. Again, not a problem. It's just beneficial to learn in an experiential way that is coming from the mind, and that has nothing to do with the deeper pulse that is attempting to show you the way experientially, right? It's two very different worlds, topside world, underworld. And I would venture to say that in an archetypal way, so not in a sex-based way, but certainly in an archetypal way, the underworld, the underbelly, the not quite, radiantly exposed by the light way, right? In that darker way, like the nourishing dark of a really rich bed of earth. Like that is a very archetypally feminine domain. Not necessarily female, although for sure, yes, also, because paradox. But it is a domain that, both Andrew and I are currently inviting all of you down and in to. This is not like a conversation that you would have on the street, or have even at like the normal workshops around personal development that your mind loves to snack on. Right?
Yeah. That hungry mind can turn you into what Chris Bale said on my podcast with him a few episodes back, where he said you turn into a workshop whore.
So good. Oh my God. Nice.
Because, the question I get, I bet I get 10, 15, 20 DMs a day, people asking me, what book can I read to figure out how to XYZ that I've seen you talk about? And I understand where that's coming from, but you can read 1 million books. Like, if you weigh 400 pounds, you can read 1 million books about getting in shape, but reading the books is not going to change a single thing about your body. And this work is about your body, it's not about your mind. So I invite people, stop looking for books and information. Instead of looking for books and information, feel what it feels like to be where you are in the moment that you're in.
But Andrew, that's so hard. But I don't wanna. Can't I just give you money and you tell me what to do? See, and right there, we're back in the sort of like, more kinkified dynamic of just tell me what to do, Mm-hmm. Right, which is delightful in certain ways, shapes, and forms. But when it comes to the deeper thing, it's like, sorry, you have to do that yourself. You have to journey that path yourself. No one can give it to you, so to speak.
Right. Well, people inevitably come to me thinking that I'm going to help them figure out how to do Dom Sub in a way that works in their life, and I end up showing them how to be human enough to have a real human experience. And then, here's something I'd love to hear you opine on a little bit, is all of these things we're talking about. Embodiment, being in your body, being in integrity, masculine, feminine union, all of this stuff, to me, actually comes very naturally. It's kind of almost a natural byproduct when we get our own internal systems, congruence, living right and clean. And when I say clean, I mean like we clear out our traumas, we work through our shit, we let go of the things we've been carrying around with us, and all of the ways that we try to do it, and we stop needing to try to do it, and we just learn to be. And to be in presence. The sexual dynamics that people are looking for, the relational dynamics, the inner peace, the everything that you're looking for happens naturally. And the trying is the problem, so to speak, because it keeps you from that.
Yeah. I feel a couple of things come through as you speak those words. One being in approval of nature. So I am nowadays deeply in approval of my femaleness, which is different from being in approval of a cultural construct of femininity. But I am deeply in approval of that which makes me female. I have a cyclic nature. I'm not, all of the things that we always hear about. This is like very 101 level, but I want to say it just so it's on the record, right? I'm not the same every day. My hormones change. They fluctuate day to day because I am still cycling, right? I have this gift called fertility. I have this precious thing that innately has value in service of life specifically, right? And that is something that, deeply defines the mammalian part of me. I'm not disillusioned that has value. I'm not trying to run away from that value or aggrandize it either. Not trying to blow it out of proportion. And then of course, I have my intellect, I have my heart, I have, my intuition, I have all sorts of other parts and parcels that make up the whole of who I am as a human being. But I do, to your point about, living cleanly, I love that word because it has nothing to do with puritanical stuff and everything to do with right relationship to nature, right relationship to that pulse that we continue to speak about, right? Because if we are living cleanly in alignment, right? So of course this is an ever unfolding process. Again, no perfectionism ever in our conversation. It's just not necessary. We can keep throwing out that construct. If we're living cleanly, then we are intimate with ourselves and we are deeply intimate with life itself. We are receptive to life itself. We're allowing the experience of what's, as a woman, there's so much as an experience that arises within me. And the cleanliness, so to speak, is like the cleanliness of my channel, the cleanliness of my vessel, so that what's arising can express, it can come out and through, and it's not blocked by whatever, all of the things you mentioned before. But that it has space to arise within. So much of like what I feel is so important. This is my soapbox moment, number one. It's like we as women, if we have no space, oh my God, then how are we ever going to receive anything? Let alone a really, really powerful man, which is probably in our deepest desire. If there's no space over here within us, there's no space for him to penetrate into, even consensually, especially consensually, good God, right? So it's like, who's responsible? Now we get to talk about responsibility. Always comes up at some point. Who's responsible for creating that spaciousness within us? It's us, It's like no man can give us that. No person outside of ourselves can give us that spaciousness. Now, can they support? Can they help? Can they attune? Can they witness? Can we entrain to other women who have that spaciousness already? Of course. But they can't give it to us or like wave the magic wand and like poof, make it happen in a way that sticks and lands for good. So there's a call towards right relationship with biology, I think, for both men and women, males and females. And I understand we have all sorts of expression. I totally get it. And there is like underlying nature, or like there are patterns that I personally feel very strongly that we should not be so arrogant to assume that we have power over something that has existed for eons before us. I am in submission to that which has created life for thousands and tens of thousands of years. Because I want that. I want more life, So why wouldn't I happily, joyfully be in submission to that which creates the most exalted forms of life? And union, of course, loving, devotional, co-created union being one of those really pristine things, quote unquote, right? Containers, however we want to call it.
Well, what you're getting at is, again, the truth.
Shocker.
And, I remember reading David Deda's Way of the Superior Man for the first time. And he was talking to men, and that, now not all men are masculine core in the way that he talks about it in the book, but you probably are.
You probably are. You probably are. Once you strip away all that other stuff, you probably are.
Not all women have a feminine core, but you probably do.
Yeah.
And don't decide otherwise until you have done everything you can do to let go and to be with and to surrender to all and move through all of those pieces of yourself that come from trauma, that come from wounding, that come from early life, belief systems that you built.
Yeah, or societal overlays that are shoved down our throats every day. Isn't that funny how that works?
Yeah. So don't be so quick to assume that you are anything other than you are, because when you do this really deep work, and I think the most spiritual work we can do is the most human work we can do. Really, if we're working on our human, if we're working on our psychological, mental, emotional traumas, and we're cleaning up our human experience, the spiritual experience, again, just becomes that which flows through automatically. And we don't have to try so hard. It really, we are in a human experience, no matter how much of a spiritual ego that people want to slap on top of themselves to try to appear a certain way. Yeah, we are human, and we're having a human experience, and the most spiritual thing I think we can do is to be as fully alive in our humanness as we can be.
Full alignment. +1 to that. No, I'm super on board with that, because it's also much more trustworthy, right? Let's be real. If you're a person who's like super popped out of their body, or if you're trying to ascend to 5D or become a Lemurian priestess, whatever person, like I can't even feel you anymore. Like, where are you? Where did you go? Why did you leave? Like, hello. We're here. We're on Earth. We're here. So, like, let's be here, Let's actually be here. And also, to your point, it doesn't need to be this sensationalized thing. Or, I mean, truthfully, to quote Chris Bale's thing about being a workshop whore, it's a lot of sensation seeking, right? It's a lot of sensation seeking, high experience seeking, peak experience seeking, which, again, I totally get it. Believe me, like, I love a peak experience. I'm a Gemini, you know what I mean? Like, little fractals of my identity love peak experiences. I'm super there. And yet there's a difference between loving it, because it's like, whoa, this is what's happening. This is what's unfolding. Oh my God, I'm so grateful. Like, thank you. Versus like the hungry ghost coming back into play and needing that fix, needing that hit, whether that be inside of a volatile relationship where we have no ground, or whether that be at a super conscious intimacy workshop, right? Where we feel so blown open.
We have to talk like this in breathy voices.
Oh, good Lord. Stop. I can't. I'm allergic. Please. Yeah, there's a difference, right? Like, you can speak from a place that you're deeply in your body, and it might be somewhat breathy depending on where you are, right? Like, located in your physical form. But good God, like, let's not put on airs. What are we doing? Like, what is the point?
Yeah, and this is what people do in so much of their life. They're trying to live action role play.
Yeah.
A life. Maybe if I'm like this, then maybe then I'll get this, or maybe if I, like, if I act this way, or I want to be like that, so I'm going to act like those people. And now you've gone out from yourself, rather than moving from inside and being in your body. You're moving from trying to be something other than you are.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm even a fan of acting in the sense that I think it's a great practice to, from that place of, as you're saying, the pulse. It's like, oh, cool. I want to try on a little new flavor. I'm gonna just try it on, see how it feels. It's gonna expand a part of my being, and then I'll find out, is it for me or not? Like, great, experiment. What is this? This is a grand experiment. So play. But from that place of like, no, I'm just playing. I don't need a result. I don't need a specific outcome. I don't need it to look a certain way. I'm just going to give it a go. And whatever happens, happens. I'll probably learn something. Like, I hope. Fingers crossed.
Well, that's a part of what becomes available when you're moving from, the way I've just been saying this to Dawn in the last couple of days is, I continue to try to teach her to trust the impulse, that immediate impulse, because that shows itself to be true almost without fail. How many times we've been in a situation or an experience, and she's been like a big fuck no to it in her system, but she's tried to go along with it or feel it out and see if she comes around to maybe a place we're staying or new people that we're meeting or whatever it might be. The initial impulse is what always tells the truth. And that's a tough thing to do, because the mind wants to question yourself. Just turn the screws a little bit tighter. Can I really trust me? And what have you done? Because I see and feel you as somebody who really trusts your body, trusts your impulses. How have you built that trust in yourself?
Painstakingly over the course of many decades. Not a smooth path.
That's how you know it's a real answer.
Good God. Yeah. Slowly. Yeah, still building, and because I know Dawn personally, she and I, we grew up very differently, but we're both from the Midwest, somewhat similar cultural overlays for sure. And yeah, I feel we have walked similar journeys in the sense that our own parents did not necessarily attune to that deeper knowing in us and train us or remind us of how important that deeper thing really is. And I imagine that's the case for probably the vast majority of your listeners as well, right? This is just a very normal thing. And so we learned to not trust it ourselves, and subsequently made all sorts of choices from different places, usually from our minds or protective parts or whatever. And then we got to experience the results of those choices. And those results were things that we did not prefer. They didn't feel good to us. So painstakingly is the word that I use, because, ultimately at some point, she and I probably hit our head against the wall enough times to say, listen, it's really not working out when I don't trust that thing. It's just not working. Why is this so painful? I don't think it's supposed to be this way. And maybe just a 1 degree shift back towards that inner voice, very small, gradual. And then maybe a man came into our lives, in which, it's totally the case for both of us, right? You and Shane came into our lives, and huge reroute. Drastic reroute, no longer just the 1 degree shift back towards the voice of that inner knowing, but 50 degrees, 180 degrees, and yeah, and rather than us seeing the both of you as teachers that are imparting knowledge to our brains of this is how to be a woman, this is how to be a feminine, submissive woman. Rather than
step 1.
Right.
Always say yes.
Yeah. Classic. Yes. Never say no. What? Yeah. No. We'll banish all of that nonsense. Yeah. So you came in, and Shane came in, and simply were of service, of deep service to the deeper knowing that already existed in Dawn and already existed in me. And that, oh my God, such a gift. Like the gift of the century, potentially the gift of a lifetime, you know. And it's not necessarily for the ladies listening who are like, oh shoot, like I haven't met my man yet. Like, oh no, like what am I, it's only going to be painstaking 1 degree at a time. Like, no, I'm not saying that at all either. I'm just sharing that from our own experiences. Like this is how it unfolded for Dawn and for me. But certainly, you know, dear, dear friends, trusted counsel, mentors, whomever, right? Family members, parents even, who are attuned, they have the ability to give this sort of like nudge, this loving redirect as well, of course. And are we open to it? Right? That's the other question. So I know for a fact, like when I reflect, I know for a fact that there were many people in my life who attempted so lovingly, so generously to give me little redirects and to invite me back onto path many times. And I was not ready. I was not open to hearing them, was not listening, was not receptive. And that's not a knock on me. I don't feel any shame or guilt about that whatsoever. I'm just like, it just was what it was. That's just where I was on my life, you know, unfolding in that chapter of my life. And now it's different. And I'm very grateful for that. But to not, go back and like shame the past. It was what it was. Yeah.
I look so often at my role in Dawn's life too. You said 180 degrees, and it just gave me this image of what I've told her is that I see my job is to turn you 180 degrees around so you're not looking outside of yourself for an answer, but turning you around so you are looking back inward for the answer. And, you know, I kind of jokingly before said, you know, never say no, always say yes. But if, like, I'm just going to divert here for a second for the people who are like, yeah, but I want this dom sub thing, right? For the woman who wants to be submissive and surrendered and follow and obedient and feels the excitement and the draw and the pull to that my call to you is that is a deeper desire, because you can have that, you can live that, you can be that, but you can do it from a place where you're not trying to do it to get something, where you're not trying to surrender to avoid your internal world, but where you can surrender from a place of being fully entrusting of your internal world, where you actually have yourself to give.
Yes.
Because submission means submit, to give over.
Right.
And what do you have to give if you don't have ownership of the you that you are giving, if you don't have a connection to the you that you want to give? And for the men who are like, yeah, I want her just to do whatever I say. Yeah, but you fucking know if she's faking it. If she's not coming from a place of pure desire, coming all the way back to what you brought up so beautifully at the beginning of this, is we need our woman to be in her true desire, which means she might not want us. She might not want this. She might not actually, we have to give her full no if we want to experience what it's like to have the full yes. So these are deeper callings. And I think when we can, as men, when we can turn our women back around into themselves, it's the slower path. Like, it's not immediate, right now, give me what I want. But it is a path to a deeper ability to have that connection you really seek in a way that's real and not just a performance.
Absolutely. And I know that the men who are listening, that is the deeper desire that you have anyway. Of course you don't want a woman to just give herself over from a place of collapse. That would reflect so poorly on your own competence and capacity as a man. And I don't say this from a place of disrespect, but just from a place of bringing that sort of truth. I believe in the highest in men. I believe in the nobility of men. I am a staunch supporter of the most powerful pulse that could possibly animate men on this planet. I'm a fuck yes to all of that. Like, so, so deeply needed. And so if a man is willing to tolerate anything less than the highest of his woman, and if he settles for some paltry shadow of her submission just to pump a sensation briefly in a moment that's fleeting, like, what does he miss in himself? What does he miss out on in himself? And yes, of course, like, also in her.
He misses self-respect.
He misses out on his true power.
Yeah.
It's a huge missed opportunity of his own full erectness, his full erect potency as a man in his spine, in his cock and balls. Like, that's what he misses if he's still seeking for this sort of, whatever we want to call it, like paltry version of, like just purely kink-based submission. Fine, that is a flavor, and I'm not going to knock the flavor because the flavor is delicious. And don't miss the deeper thing.
Yeah. And
please, please.
I love when men can look at this and say, okay, yes, that's fun. And also, why am I afraid of earning it? Why am I afraid of doing the work to really have her feel that way about me because of who I am, rather than just because of what I tell her to do?
Exactly.
If he can ask himself that question, that's the invitation into his deeper wounding and pain and probably codependent patterns and mommy issues and all of the deeper stuff that, are going to put him in a position of wanting power out of a place of feeling powerless, rather than wanting power out of a place of actually being in his own power.
Yeah, because men are vessels too, right? There is so much talk about, like the feminine vessel, just be the channel, right? And that's beautiful. It's certainly, a very native architecture for us as women, but men are also channels. You are also vessels for the beyond that is attempting to come through your body here, now. Like, you all have immense capacity to hold life force, and whatever we want to like slap a label on top of it, whatever we want to call true power, right? Not these like false versions that you're speaking to so well, but like the thing that we're attempting to remember how it feels. Like, we know, we have some sort of deep soul knowing, men have this too, of what it feels like when they are locked in to that source point in themselves. And I believe, it's my firm belief, that all of these attempts to go back to that, as misguided as they may be, it's still attempts. Like, I praise that, great. I love that people are attempting to get back to that source point and bring more of that through in their own bodies. And I'm just also very grateful for people, such as you and Dawn, for holding the field open for that to be possible, to have these broader, vaster, deeper conversations that are way more nuanced. I mean, to be honest, like this right here, this conversation that we're having, like this could have been a masterclass, like a paid masterclass, right? Where the ego could get off on like, I'm like paying for this masterclass to da-da-da-da-da, right? And I'm going to get all this information. But there's no point. It doesn't matter. You and I can just speak freely. And the ones who have ears to hear it, they will hear it and they will ingest something and they will have it for themselves. Because it's just, we're not trying to teach anything. We're just having a space so that you can remember something for yourself. That's it. Anyway, I get very passionate about this. So if I'm deviating from the normal submissive feminine flavors, I don't apologize.
Good.
I know.
Want you to.
Absolutely.
I think, 50 some minutes into this, the people who are just like, how do I get my wife to be a trad wife, have probably tuned out by now.
Probably.
So this idea of men as a vessel, women as a vessel, I would love to hear if you've got a word. A woman is a vessel of what?
There are two words. Life and love. Life and love. And for men, I feel life and truth. But isn't truth also love? Like life and love and truth. Like, that's it. And then we're gone. And then we're not here anymore. right? It's like we're a vessel for a short amount of time. That's it. We don't get that long.
Another really good reason to not get so caught up in thinking your way to death, because you won't care what you understood, you'll care what you experienced.
Well said. Yeah, I feel that.
Before we wrap up here, I want to take just a little bit of a detour into this thing that we haven't really touched on yet, which is this idea of conditional love versus unconditional love. And I guess in some ways we have touched on the edges of it without actually talking about it, but what is it, like, what is unconditional love to you, really, when you hear that word? What does that mean?
So as like a human ear listening to that, I hear it in the context of motherly love, unconditional love towards a child, an infant, offspring. And I also hear it as like godly love, like God's love, the divine's love song for us. Where, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. Not to say that our actions don't matter or have consequences, of course they do. But that there is a deep and abiding love that does not drop or fade away or splinter or falter. And yeah, that's sort of where the motherly love comes back into play. I'm curious actually how you experience that, because I don't feel like I know how you experience it.
And this won't surprise you, knowing me, that I have a very practical view of this and a very human view of this. But to me, to have and be in a state of unconditional love is to be in an unconditional state of acceptance of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And that means to have unconditional love for myself, I need to accept the truth about my soul, who I am, what I know to be true. In a lot of cases, that I resist the most that which is most for me, and that those are the places that are calling me into the deepest acceptance and surrender. And then when it comes to Dawn and to the way that I love her, is to bring that same kind of acceptance to her. Meaning, rather than expecting her to live a life where she needs to be something for me, that what I want from her is for her to be all of who she is, regardless of what it means to or about me. Because I cannot have unconditional love for her and then ask her to be different. But I also can't love the full version of her if she isn't in a state of unconditional love for herself. So it really is the removal of all conditions. It's complete acceptance and not making our love mean things, coming out of the meaning of love and coming into the acceptance of reality of, and loving the person behind, underneath, and from whom the actions are coming.
I love that. It's so beautiful. Feels like honey. Feels like it tastes like honey. I don't know why. Just going with it.
And it's such a gift to be able to give and receive an experience. And I think it's the greatest gift that we can give to ourselves, is to give unconditional love to the people around us. To really accept them as they are, because we all want to be loved unconditionally, right? I want to be just loved for who I am. Doesn't matter what I do. Right?
So
we all
we
want
do.
that.
Oh, can I say something else?
Please.
I have parts of me that do definitely desire that and have that and receive that. And then I also have parts of me that are like, no, I want conditional love in accordance with my own values. Meaning, like, if I'm not living in alignment with my own values, I want to experience some consequence of that. I would love to, and of course we can debate all day long, like, at what level of love are we talking about, right? Because the person who would call me out for not living in alignment with my values, even if it's in a way that I don't prefer, is ultimately a very loving person, right? It's a loving act to do so. But yeah, I feel like romantic love specifically can sometimes have these conditions around it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. when the conditions are tied back to those deepest values, right? It's when there are these arbitrary or superficial conditions that are more performative in nature, or like trying to make a person something that they're just not, that we go off the rails around conditional love. So there's even like a shadow aspect to conditional love versus like a light aspect or an integrated aspect to conditional love when it comes back down to the deepest thing.
I couldn't think of a better place to end it.
Works for me.
I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today, and let people know where they can find you if they want to know more about you and read more of your work. You're a brilliant writer and speaker, and I would love for people to be able to find more of what you do.
Thank you. I feel very honored. Thank you. I do write a bit here and there. It's the best place to find me for now anyway is on Instagram under the account @mythic.feminine, and it's mythic.feminine. While I do admit I primarily write for women, I'm sure the gentleman will also find something of value. And certainly, in the invitations to come closer into my orbit, those will primarily be for women at this point in my offerings. But it's been a pleasure. And I really, really just appreciate what you and Dawn are holding in and outside of your union. Thank you.
I'm glad to have you here. I'll have you linked in the show notes, I'm sure. And thanks for taking the time again today, Ginger.
A pleasure. Thank you, Andrew.